one constant feeling reigns over the 130-plus year history of NC State Wolfpack football. Hope. And when there's hope, well, Pack fans can always relate. Pack family, time for a true look at your team. Expert analysis, special guests, and a Carter Finley-sized bag full of X's and O's. Let's get hooked up for Pack Therapy. Here are your hosts, Tim Donnelly and Wolfpack great Mike Glennon.
Welcome back into another edition of Pack Therapy. I'm Tim Donnelly, my co-host, NC State legend Mike Glennon. We are getting ready for Miami during today's episode. If you want a reaction to the big win over Clemson, you can find that in our archives. Find it everywhere podcasts can be found, and be sure to give it a like, comment, subscribe, wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also check out the video version on our YouTube page at 99.9 The Fan. Be sure to do the same there. Like, subscribe, tell your friends. Here's the funny part, right? We recorded the Clemson reaction right after the game, whatever it was, Monday morning. The questions about NC State have changed super dramatic since then. And what I mean by that is going into the Clemson game, very legitimate conversations about bowl eligibility, right? You had just, not played up to your expectations prior to the bye. And then after the bye, it was, can you find 2 more wins to get to bowl eligibility? And I think that was a fair conversation to have. You beat Clemson, and on my afternoon show on 99.9 The Fan, the question being posed to me is, can they get to 9 wins, including the bowl? And I'm going, 9? We were just asking about 6. Now we're all the way to 9. And you look at the schedule, and you're trying to do some internal math, and has it changed? Like, does a win over Clemson, who's now a 500 team, how dramatically does it change what you look at for the rest of the season?
See, I do feel like we said this: they could win every game or they could lose them all. So
chances are it's going to be somewhere in the middle.
Honestly, I don't think that's necessarily changed. I mean, you look at what's left, and Miami's a good team coming in, but they're definitely beatable. And then you kind of keep going down the list, and Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, UNC. I mean, all of these are winnable games, and all of them are losable games. So 9, is that out of the question? I'd say that's unlikely.
That's kind of the same answer I gave.
Do they lose them all? I think that's unlikely as well. So I think you're probably right. I think it's right in the middle.
Again, a win over Clemson. It was a very talked about win, and it changes things. It does. I just don't know if it opens up the ceiling all the way. And Miami, I think, is a good barometer on this one. They're not the best team in the ACC. They do a lot of things well. Tyler Van Dyke is playing better than he did last season, and I don't know if he's the NFL guy some thought he would be, but he still has all the physical traits. Their defense, again, not the best in the ACC, but they do some things really well. They're the best team in the ACC at stopping the run, and we'll get into all of this a little bit more. But I mean, I guess we should start at the beginning. When you talk about changing expectations, it's football. It comes down to the quarterback. What's the next step for MJ Morris, who didn't exactly light it up against Clemson, but a win's a win, and he did enough to win the game?
I think it's what we talked about the other day, and it's going to be kind of the flow of the game. How is the game going? If NC State can get off to a hot start and get off to a lead, then I think he just needs to play the way he did. Now with Tyler Van Dyke on the other side, I think he's a better player than Cade Klubnik, and they're probably going to have to score some more points. So there's going to come a point where he's going to have to be more aggressive, and taking care of the ball isn't going to be enough. I think just from what I saw is it did feel like he was getting a little bit of a one-and-run mentality. At times there weren't guys open, just like we mentioned the other day. You got 7 guys in protection, a 3-man route with no checkdowns versus 8 men dropping. That's not on the quarterback. There's nowhere to check it down. So I think he just has to get back to what we saw last year. And I saw a guy that was just kind of cutting it loose. And sometimes I feel like when you come in as a guy with no experience, you're not thinking, you're just playing. And to me right now, it looks like he's thinking a little bit more because you're a little smarter as a player. You kind of know what the defense is doing, and it almost like it has to be the perfect picture, and it doesn't have to be that way. He can just get back to letting it loose and trusting his eyes. He's got a good enough arm. He's got the talent and what we saw last year, but I think it's more about playing with that free mindset versus trying to be so perfect and careful with the ball.
That's interesting to me when you talk about, I don't know if this is the best example. This is the one that popped into my head. Underrated Kevin Costner sports movie, For the Love of the Game, right? You gotta zoom past Bull Durham. You got to keep it rolling past Field of Dreams, past Draft Day. You get to For the Love of the Game. And in the movie, he's throwing a perfect game, and the opposing team puts like a rookie who's been – it's the Yankees. Put a rookie who's been in the bigs for like a week up, in the ninth inning. They pinch hit him, and the internal monologue of the pitcher is, you don't know how nervous you should be, right? It's like you're so new up here. You don't realize that, like, you don't go up in the ninth inning to break up a perfect game every week you're in the bigs because this is all you know. For MJ last year – I mean, that's a whirlwind, right? You're thinking Devin Leary's the quarterback. He's an NFL prospect. He was the preseason ACC Player of the Year. I'm going to chill. I'm going to be redshirting, right? I'm going to get used to everything. He goes down. You're like, all right, Jack's going in. I'm going to have to be a little bit more ready. But then all of a sudden you're the guy and you're going out there against ACC opponents. You don't really have time to think about, what if I make a mistake here? What if why should I be conservative, or why should you just don't have time. You're just in there and the treadmill's set to high and you're running. This year, a little bit different, right? Like you said, a little bit less cutting it loose mentality. If he does get into it again, it's very within the realm of possibility. Tyler Van Dyke throws a touchdown on his first two possessions, right? And you're down 14-3, right? It's not saying it's going to happen. I think State's defense is good enough to bottle him up as another possibility. But if it does, is MJ in that offense ready to drag you back, or have the poise to say, we don't have to get it all back in one play?
I think he has the talent to do so. It's about his mentality and the guys around him. I mean, I think we've seen enough through these 8 games that outside of KC Concepcion, I don't know if they have guys that are going to be able to lead them back into a game. And I think it is that mentality of him. And just going back to that point, I think when you come in as a freshman, he was almost the quarterback by default. Mm-hmm. Devin Leary actually was having an underwhelming season. Then comes Jack Chambers, who struggled. And then it was like, by default, let's put in MJ. And he wasn't thinking about the future. He was just staying in the moment and playing ball. Where now it's like there's a heightened sense of pressure when they bench someone for him. So it's like, I need to play better than this guy. And then I think it also comes into play what James Henderson from Inside Pack Sports brought up is he's playing for his job next year as well. Like, he's got to prove that he's the guy in this portal era of is NC State, is Dave Doran confident in me being the guy next year? So it's a whole new mindset. I think that's why the quarterback position is so unique, is it's about the physical skills, but there's a whole mental side to it that maybe he's facing. I don't know, but that's kind of what it looks like to me.
From the outside and from where I'm sitting, right, in my career, I think I experienced, like, I learned this too late, which is when I was a starting quarterback in college. I think I was pressing, then I got benched, and then that guy got hurt and I went back in, and I was very much like, well, they've already taken it away from me once. I'm just going to let it rip, and I played much better from that point forward. And looking back, I'm like, gosh, I wish I would have played like that originally. But I don't know if it's that easy, right?
It's not that easy. And I think that's what I faced in the majority of my career is as a backup quarterback that gets limited time to play. When you do play, you always feel like you're playing for your next job. Like, it's hard to stay in the moment and enjoy it because it's like, I need to play well now because this is going to have an impact on my future. And I think when I did play my best is when you play free and you don't think about the future. There's no fear of failure. There's none of that. So, we have no idea what's truly going through MJ's head, but I think that's the reality of the position and kind of the where his head might be at. And I can understand why.
KC Concepcion, you brought it up. He's the guy with the juice. A team like Miami, we can make fun of Miami all we want, and sometimes it's really fun to make fun of Miami, right? Is the U back, the turnover chain, sometimes the not taking a knee when all you need to do to take a knee or to win the game is take a knee. Sometimes they bring it on themselves. But the one thing Miami kind of always has is athletes, right? When you get to recruit the hometown kids from South Florida, you're going to end up with enough speed on the team to compete with anyone. now Casey Concepcion, he's not even just circled on the scouting report when you're playing NC State's offense. He's circled, he's highlighted, he's bold, he's bigger font. On scout team during the week, there's the fastest kid on the scout team offense is wearing a yellow penny, and they're saying, "This is Concepcion. Know where he is." How difficult is it going to be for them to do what they did last week, which is kind of scheme open a couple big plays for him to use that electric ability?
Last week I was concerned a little with Clemson has some DBs that Clemson always going to have.
Clemson
athletes.
is similar. They're very similar.
They're similar, and they found a way to get it done. So. Athletically, do I think NC State matches up great against Miami? Probably not, but I think
Concepcion outran the entire Clemson defense. That's no joke.
And Robert and I will find ways to get him the ball. So, I think that'll be interesting to see because, to your point, they're going to be doing everything possible to double team him, whatever it takes, to not let him wreck the game. I mean, that's what he's been. He's been a game wrecker. And Miami's going to, I'm sure, have a plan to limit that, his explosive plays.
I was surprised researching for this pod. Miami has they've allowed the fewest amount of rushing yards per game of any team in the ACC. That seems to be a strength on weakness here because State's running game hasn't exactly been explosive. They just haven't gotten the big plays. Obviously, Jordan Houston was expected to participate in some of those big plays, and he's no longer with the squad. But you look at Raphael, you look at Michael Allen, MJ Morris, Casey Concepcion's brought back there. The State's already been kind of all hands on deck in the running game. How important is it for them to find a way to get that going against Miami, even though that seems to be the strength of their defense?
Do they line Brennan Armstrong and run counter with him again as the running back?
I want to go back to that, but answer the question. And we'll go back to it.
I think it's a point of emphasis. Coaches preach on it. We got to establish a run game. We got to establish a run game. We got to establish a run game. And I do think the offensive line is playing better, especially with Dylan McMahon back. But against a team that has done a good job against the run, they're going to have to find ways because I don't think NC State's proven that they can drop back 40 times a game and consecutively move down the field. So they can't rely just on the huge explosive plays that kind of Casey had last week. You want to put together a good drive, and that starts with the run game.
We're going to take a quick break here. Pack Therapy. He brought up Brennan Armstrong into the game. I want to talk. I have a specific note from my notes from watching the game on the Brennan Armstrong package of plays in the playbook that they used. We'll get to that right after the break right here on the Pack Therapy Pod. Welcome back, Pack Therapy Podcast. Continuing here to fulfill what I was talking about right before we took that quick break. Brennan Armstrong's still getting into the game. At certain points, they have MJ Morris and Brennan Armstrong in the game, and it's not just a true Wildcat. I want to read a note. When I watch the games, I have my notepad, my notes app open, and I'm scribbling down as much as I can. And I was in the press box. In the middle of NC State's fourth series, I wrote down this note. It's like a side note, right? So it's not just a reaction to a play. I wrote, I actually think they used the bye week well in terms of offensive play calling. Then I had bullet points that said, lots of Casey Concepcion, more creative motions and shifts, and they improved their use of Brennan Armstrong, and I capitalized a lot. And then if you go down, let's see here, 2.5 series later, I take back what I said about the Brennan Armstrong playbook package because they had a 3rd and 10 where they put him in, and it was kind of a traditional, let's see if we can make it a decision on 4th down play. And he had a heck of a run, almost picked up the first down. It was like 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12. And it was, to me, the type of play that doesn't really ruin MJ Morris's rhythm. Because if you don't pick it up, he's on the sideline anyway. It's kind of an end of series. It's also not a play that MJ Morris is upset he doesn't get. When you put in the backup quarterback and you do a drop back pass, sometimes I think the starter's like, what the heck, man? I could have done that. And it's another thing in their brain. It was a really good play call. I liked it. I wrote down that I liked it. And then then they started going to it more often. He was dropping back at times. He was out there in an empty formation at one point. MJ Morris is sometimes split out. Sometimes he's on the sideline. I think it's too much. I think that they needed like 2 games where they didn't put Brennan Armstrong at all. Then they could bring him back in a little bit, but I didn't love the way they handled that.
The success rate just isn't there. I get why they're trying it, because before, the bench, Brennan was the best running back on the team. So I thought it was a creative way to try to get him the ball, because he is a downhill runner and has been more effective than the running backs at times. But, it hasn't really worked. 3rd and 10, you get 8 yards. That's not a bad thing, but at the end of the day, you're trying to get the first down. So was that better than letting MJ drop back and pass and try to get it down the field? And then I think at some point you almost have to let him pass, because then if anytime he goes in there, the defense knows that it's just a run, and it's when you put MJ at receiver and Brennan at quarterback, it's pretty obvious what they're going to do there. I guess they could clear MJ out and just have him run like a go. But, yeah, I'm with you. I don't fault them for trying to get creative with it and trying to do something to get the run game going. But the success just hasn't been there.
And, yeah, I mean, that's probably the best way to put it. It's just that they've done it enough now and it hasn't worked. I still, I think if you let it breathe for a little bit, then you can bring them in and it can be a true change of pace. Right now it just feels like they don't have a plan for it, and it's very frustrating.
The easy comparison to Taysom Hill, but when you watch Sundays and you watch Taysom Hill, it's effective.
Yep.
And, I mean, I think he had 2 touchdowns last week.
They do
let him throw the ball occasionally, and it feels like it's a post that's wide open for a touchdown.
You'll never convince me Derek Carr likes it.
No.
Like, the starters still aren't in favor of it.
No. But it has not been anywhere near as successful as when the Saints do it with Taysom Hill.
Let's talk again. This is the Miami preview. Let's talk Tyler Van Dyke. He is, I can't imagine how this guy hasn't hit the transfer portal at least once by now, with him being, so good early on. He had a 5-game stretch where he was throwing for 300 yards per game, every game. Then the depths of last season. Now he's back and playing kind of solidly in the middle. What is the scouting report on that guy? When Tony Gibson and the defensive staff are watching Tyler Van Dyke, TVD, Tyler Van Dime, if you ask Miami fans, what are they seeing, and like, how afraid should they be?
He's a big quarterback. He looks like an NFL quarterback. He throws it well. He's going to make some great throws, and he's going to turn the ball over. So it's a kind of a high risk, high reward, kind of player, honestly, similar to Tony Gibson. I mean, he's gonna make some plays that are great, and he's gonna make some plays that Miami fans are gonna be scratching their heads over. So it's a matchup that is scary, because if he hits on those big plays, then it could be trouble for NC State, or it could be a game where they get a couple turnovers early, and then they're playing the exact type of style they want to play with that lead. So he's got the talent. Last year was tough. I think he dealt with some injuries. He's playing much better this year with the new offensive coordinator, and he's definitely one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC.
We both had, and I was talking to some people about it, how I always feel like I still got it when I watch a game and I take notes on like particular defenses. Then we come on the pod and you're like, I saw it too, and I'm like, yes, the 10-year NFL vet, I still got it. We both saw some. By the way, zero blitzes are the easiest thing in the world to like take note of. So I might be patting myself on the back for making a layup. But we both noticed Tony Gibson sent a couple that made our eyes kind of go, whoa. Now, maybe that was his intention, right? If it seems unusual, that usually means the offense, will also think it seems unusual. Is Tyler Van Dyke a guy that you can send the house at and have success, or is he, there are certain veteran quarterbacks in college football that if you send 0 at, you're almost signing your own death wish. Which side of that does he fall into?
I think you just have to kind of pick and choose. I don't think you want to live by it, because he does have the arm, and Miami has the speed on the outside that something could happen similar to what happened against Duke, where the guy runs a stutter go and it's an 80-yard touchdown. But he's a guy that you can force turnovers. You can sack him. I mean, looking at the last 3 games, he has 7 interceptions the past 3 games. So this is a guy that you can rattle and you can get in his head. So, whether we think it or not, I have a feeling Tony Gibson's going to be dialing up the pressure and calling cover 0.
I wasn't asking if he will, because I think he's proven he's going to find 5 or 6 times a game to bring the house. It's a question of how do we think that's going to go, right? Because, I mean, their defense has been great. And actually, a surprising amount of times in my notes for Clemson offensive series, I was able to just write nothing special and move on to the NC State. Like, there were quite a few 3-and-outs or 5-and-outs where there really wasn't anything explosive or noteworthy. Will Shipley picks up 7 is like the highlight of a drive, and it ends in a punt. But there is always, every time you get that aggressive, there's going to be the chance that it backfires on you, which is the Tony Gibson MO. But I mean, that the State defense, I feel like we do like every podcast we should have music that plays for 30 seconds where we just hype up Peyton Wilson. We compliment Tony Gibson's scheme, and then we move on, because it's the same thing every single week. And even with Peyton Wilson getting hurt, he still had 8 tackles, scored a touchdown off a tipped pass interception. That they're gonna keep you in games if they're showing up with their A game. They
will. They've proven it week in and week out. I do think Miami's one of the better offenses they're gonna see this year, probably the best outside of Carolina the last week of the season. So we'll see what Tony Gibson comes up with this week, but I have complete faith in this defense with Peyton Wilson and everyone across the board.
Last kind of aspect to this one, and again, we talked about this on the recap from the Clemson win. The country talked about it over the weekend. Dave Doran, I keep seeing it called this spicy. His spiciness where he told a Carolina Panthers legend to kiss his ass, meaning Steve Smith Sr. What does that change the attitude of State? Now, you played for Tom O'Brien at NC State. I don't think you can imagine T.O.B. in the postgame telling anybody to kiss his ass, but how does that? Does the locker room come in with more of a swagger against Miami? You're against the U, which is a thing. Do you have some of that answers?
I think so. You take a lot of times the team takes the attitude and is a reflection of the head coach. Mm-hmm. So when they see their coach do that, it kind of brings some juice to them, and I feel like it's almost like a subliminal. We got to back this up now, and if our coach is going to talk the talk, we got to walk the walk. And the U, playing against the U fits that culture very well. And I think that beating Clemson, those post-game comments, I think it does bring some energy to this team and sets the mindset and the attitude of this team for the rest of the season.
So I'm trying to think of the perfect example of this. If it's almost like your coach is writing the check and you have to go cash it, and only the check is telling a NFL maybe one day Hall of Famer to put it where it belongs, I believe is what he said in the post game. It's this is why college football is what it is, because the storylines and the emotion of it are so much more than you see at the professional level.
This stuff doesn't really happen at the NFL. I mean, I guess the closest thing was when Sean Payton talked about how bad Nathaniel Hackett was as a coach there, and
everybody looked at Sean Payton and was like, "That's not cool, bro." In college, it's like, "Yeah, way to go."
Yeah. And he wasn't calling out a former coach that's at a coach, somewhere else. And that is what's great about college football is the rivalries, just everything. It is completely different in the NFL, and that's one of the downsides of the NFL is it doesn't have the elements that we're talking about now.
Last thing here, and this came out a couple days ago. The ACC released the next 7 years of ACC football schedules. Who knows if they won't have to redo that thing 4 times in the next 7 years based on expansion or teams leaving or whatever it is. But I'm interested to hear your thought on the protected rivalries, are games that are going to play every single year. NC State has obviously Carolina, Duke, Wake. They don't have Clemson, which is a game that I think a lot of fans have looked to as a really fun game. Is that a huge missed opportunity? Was that a forced rivalry? Like not having that game every year. What's your
I see it 2 ways. From the fan perspective, I have always enjoyed playing Clemson because it's to be the best, you got to beat the best, and Clemson has been that. On the flip side, I love that the Triangle schools plus Wake Forest are always going to play each other. And then also there's, what the Coastal Division was in the ACC and how that clearly was the tougher division. And, excuse or not, it made it tough for NC State.
Very difficult.
There's no excuses now. I mean, to go from playing Clemson, Florida State, Louisville every year to now playing Carolina, Duke, Wake.
And Louisville was up during that divisional era. Yeah.
And all that. So it's time to win. I mean, with that setup, there's no more excuses, whatever you call what was going on in the Coastal. It was an uphill battle. That's out the window now, and I think it sets up favorably for NC State to hopefully get to an ACC championship, in the next 7 years. Now, will this? They're saying for 7 years. Is that what it is?
7 years.
7 years. Will
starting next year? 7 years.
Will it actually look like this for 7 full years? I have a feeling no, but for the next few years, it gives NC State a favorable shot to go far in the ACC.
The other big reaction was most teams will only be going to California 2 or 3 times in the 7 years that they've planned. You wouldn't mind one trip out west during your 4 years on campus?
Yeah, I mean, I'd been to California maybe once before I got to college. So I think, for a lot of kids, they probably have never been to California and would love to see, go to Stanford, Cal, see the Bay Area. I mean, it's beautiful out there. So I think it would be
taking
fun.
Napa Valley.
I don't think they're gonna go to Napa.
It's beautiful country out there.
But it's still, unique to go to California, and the flight's not that bad. Once every 2 years. I mean, you're talking about a 5-6 hour flight. It's not that big of a deal to me.
Football is not like baseball where you're gonna have to play series and be crisscrossing the country. Football, it's once every 3 or 4 years you go to Cali. That's kind of sweet. Actually, I kind of like that for the ACC. That's it for Pack Therapy. We will react to the Miami game next week. Check out all of our archives for more state talk. Until next time, see ya.